This week at IT SPARC Cast, Microsoft wants to help AI agents remember it for you wholesale. Zuckerberg and Ford say that AI agents suck, and India disagrees. Greetings and welcome to IT SPARC Cast. I'm your host, John Barger.
And I'm your host, Lou Schmidt. Let's see what's going on out there. And what's going on out there this week is a whole lot of AI.
A whole lot of AI. It's Monday, July 6th. IT SPARC Cast News Bytes is a digest of the IT news over the last week with insights, opinions, and a little sarcasm from two experts, each with over 20 years experience working in IT or for IT vendors. And now, the News Bytes.
Well, Microsoft is up to no good again, coming up with something called Memora for AI agents. So one of the challenges is that an AI agent doesn't necessarily have a long-term memory of what it's been doing. So there's short-term context, but there hasn't explicitly been a standard yet for an agent to remember prior interactions with you, sort of an extended state machine. So Microsoft introduced Memora, a new memory architecture designed to give AI agents long-term memory and context. Now, I haven't looked directly at this protocol yet, and I probably should. A friend of mine actually built something very much like this, and you should try this as well, simply by telling the AI model to remember what it had done. And he's keeping a local script, XML script, that tells him what every step has done so that the AI can always reference it. But this one is focused on agents, which is interesting. And the goal is to help agents retain knowledge across sessions instead of starting from scratch each time. So we've talked about one of the issues of agents is the short-term memory. If I'm doing a long-term acquisition of, say, tickets, or you're looking for a band I might like or whatever, or you're an agent that's going out and doing things for me, having a long-term memory is going to be really important. Now, this is really going to impact you in the enterprise because AI agents can help maintain context across help desk tickets, customer interactions, project business workflows. I personally think it's going to be a huge boon in troubleshooting. If I keep a long-term memory cache per customer, I can start looking for common problems across my customer base, which in a way is going to replace those customer relationship databases or augment them. And it'll make your workflow much more powerful because the annotation is happening automatically inside the memory function of the agent. John, what do you see coming out of this?
Yeah, so I think this is a really smart thing to do. And I'm reminded of back when I was in software development, and I would set up a to-do list. I would use a standard computational notebook with the grids and everything else. And I would create a to-do list. And then below that, I would just keep a journal of what I'd worked on, what tests were working, what things were going on. And I could always go back. And then I'd also look at my to-do list, and anything that didn't get done, I'd move those to the next page. And I had the data at the top, and then I would just end up with a stack of these computational notebooks. Now, as a human, going through those notebooks could be time consuming. But as a digital version, which is what I do now using Apple Notes, I can always just do a search. And that's what this is giving for the AI agents. And I have seen cases where agents not just agents, but even LLMs start to lose their short-term memory. And you start saying, you iterate on something, and by the time you get to the 10th iteration, it's forgotten what the original task was, and it's skewed off and starting to do something different. So this, I think, would really help keep it on pace. I like it.
Now, the interesting challenge with this is how are we going to secure that? As we've noticed, the metadata of this long-term memory is got considerable amount of business value and privacy concerns as well. So how we secure this, my suggestion would be securing it on the device of the user that is using the agent, right? So if I'm using an agent to do things, my input to that agent should be protected by me.
Yeah.
And encrypted on my device. And I should have the option, much like we do with browsers, to say, yes, it's okay if you index this particular portion. But you know something, we've got this huge burst. Everybody's going nuts over AI. But some people are saying it's not quite going as fast as they'd like. John, do you have something on that?
I do. So Mark Zuckerberg of Meta told employees that development of AI agents was not accelerating as expected over the past 4 months. So we're really expecting, 2026 to be really the year of agents, where by the end of this year, we should have major agentic workflows working for all of us on all these different levels. And there is some of that. We are seeing it. But according to Zuckerberg, it's not moving as fast as he would like. So this came across during Meta's massive AI push, including company reorganization and reassignment of over 7,000 employees to the AI teams, and then layoffs impacting about 10% of the workforce. Then plan to spend up to $145 billion on AI infrastructure this year. I'm going to repeat that. $145 billion on AI infrastructure from just Meta. So just keep that in mind. When we start talking about these crazy evaluations of SpaceX and Anthropic and OpenAI, all looking to be over $1 trillion in value, this is the kind of money that's being spent. So just keep that in mind. But he also acknowledges that this restructuring has been disruptive and said that the expected gains from the new organizations have not yet materialized. He told employees that he still expects to see meaningful improvements over the next 3 to 6 months. So, Lou, this is really interesting level of admission coming from Zuckerberg. And I think that he tends to be pretty open with his team about things like this. But, I feel that this is true across the full industry. I think it's not just Meta that's struggling here. We're seeing agents show up. We've seen what happened with OpenClaw. We're seeing other agents set up. I've been using more and more a combination of crossing between ChatGPT and Atlas and Codex and having them work together and do different things on my behalf. I am actually looking at automating some of the podcast posting activities and things like that through those tools, but it's not where I would hope it would be. What do you think?
Well, I got to say there's a couple of dimensions to this. First of all, I agree with you. Mark is being really open about this. What is interesting to me, though, is it speaks to the challenge of Meta, not necessarily to the challenge of the industry. I actually think things are going pretty quickly. But at the same time, we're also learning new lessons that are causing us to reassess how we have to look at deploying this technology. Because quite frankly, the expectation of what it's going to do, this totally reminds me of the early World Wide Web, which I was on very, very early. Originally, it was meant to replace textbooks. That's what we designed it for. And in the physics community. And this thing just went completely nuts. What's happening right now, I think, and especially via your comment on using the multiple things, is we have folks trying to set up moats. Meta is trying to set up a little moat where you have to go to Meta to do your thing. And Anthropic wants that. And OpenAI wants that. And IBM wants that. Everybody wants that. Except the real value in this technology is blending it all together.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen MCP is a big, big deal. Right? Yeah. Getting model context protocol was the watershed moment to get this done, but we're still struggling with how that's going to be implemented. Not only are we struggling with how that's going to be implemented, but also we're struggling with how we're going to use these tools, which moves us sort of into our next topic, which is Ford is reassessing its AI hiring strategy right now. So Ford Motor Company says AI has not delivered the expected productivity gains for some software development work. And the company is shifting back towards hiring experienced software engineers along AI tools. Now, John, you and I predicted this. We saw that this was going to happen. And I would argue as somebody who's pretty up on what's going on with the software scene in the mobility sector as far as transportation, Ford is pushing hard, but almost nobody is up to the standard that's being pushed by Tesla. I mean, they took the software first viewpoint, and that enabled them to do some amazing things. Ford is trying to adopt that viewpoint. Rivian's gone and great, for example, has done a really good job there. But Ford is trying to adopt that, and they keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Now the problem is they don't have the right people in there that think the way an experienced software engineer does. They think in terms of gears, not in terms of software. So Ford's hiring more experienced people. What's your take on it?
It's interesting is this is just reminding me, history keep repeating itself. When we had talked about when the advent of IoT came in, it was companies that had no business and information security putting, some low level board running Linux or embedded Windows into an air conditioner, to a refrigerator, or to whatever it might be. And then security problems just kept coming up. In this case, I think that what we're seeing is companies built from the ground up, that's your Tesla, your Rivian, with this type of mentality in mind. They are going to adopt much better than a 100-plus-year-old company that's been doing things the same way forever to try to implement something. And what this tells me is that they jumped in to the pool with both feet forward and without looking into the pool. And it's almost analogous to Apple to me, of Apple's laggard state when it comes to AI. Is Apple actually has really long development cycles. The things that we see today, they started working on 3 or 4 years ago or more, right? And that's both software and hardware. And they're going to struggle with a lot of this as well, because they have to change the way they do things. Microsoft has to change the way they do things. We keep talking about Patch Tuesday should be dead. These companies are really going to struggle. And I think that actually provides an opportunity for the newer, more savvy companies to really jump in. And I think that, Ford's doing the right thing by, not just trying to replace people with AI, but, bring in experienced people and have them basically have super productivity because of AI. And I think that's a good thing. Now, some people are doing this correctly, and that would be a lot of companies in India. So what we're seeing from India is that their overall hiring of people in the AI sector is outpacing the rate at which they're hiring for other tech sectors. So specifically, hiring of people with AI experience has increased 16% year over year this June, whereas their overall IT hiring has declined by 3% in that same period. So what the folks in India are looking for are people with skills in generative AI, machine learning, data engineering, and AI infrastructure. So that means that they're really thinking about trying to become a player in this area, whether that's them becoming frontier model designers, or if they're just taking advantage of the AI. I think it's going to be the later, but this is really, really interesting. And this is happening across 14 different industries in India. So AI and machine learning job postings have increased by 25% year over year. So they're hiring at 16, but they're now looking to grow even faster. The strongest AI hiring growth has come from insurance and customer goods sector, not just the traditional technology companies. So this is really, really interesting to me. Lou, what do you think?
I got to say, I expected to see a big IT drop, and we are seeing that because the jobs that were typically being outsourced to India are now being automated.
Right.
At the same time, I also expected to see Indians step up higher into the stack, because the same technology that is going to make us more productive, and it certainly made us more productive. Yeah. And all American companies, as Ford saw, if you pair experience with these tools, you can get some amazing results. But the tools by themselves are not smart. So you need a human in there driving it. What you're going to see is a much more competitive environment in India as people try to raise up in that stack.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that this just goes along with, every tech trend that's come along that was supposedly going to displace jobs, and turned around and actually increased the number of higher paid jobs available out there. And this is, across the entire globe. And India is being smart here. And all these companies in India are being smart by realizing that a lot of the lower tiered outsourced services, like you said, could be automated. You can have AI agents, help desks that can answer first line support. You can have more automated QA roles. All of those things are what you would typically outsource to India. And now India is just moving themselves up the stack. And that should mean that those employees get paid more, the companies make more, charge more for the services. And at the end of the day, their economy should boom because of this. So it'll be really interesting to watch.
We'll see. I mean, one of the challenges India has is power. They have the same challenge that
Yeah.
everybody has, but they can't move as quickly. They have a really interesting thing. But there's something else happening on top of this that we saw last week that really bears on this. Gartner predicted that within 2 years, the cost of tokens per developer, the token budget per developer, is going to edge out the salary of the developer. And when that
Yep.
starts to happen, that means those people are going to have to be pushed up the stack. But that is a thing that is absolutely on track right now. And it's inevitably going to be happening because our power budget it has a longer lead time than our consumption of these resources.
Yep. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to watch. And again, the smart CEOs are the ones that are empowering their people with AI versus replacing their people with AI.
Absolutely.
And they should see the biggest gains because of that. We keep saying that over and over again, and we will continue to keep saying that over and over again.
It would be really nice if they listened.
It would. Now, before we wrap up this episode, I did want to give you a little feedback from one of our listeners, and longtime listener and longtime commenter, Dennis, sent us a little joke. And so we were talking about OpenAI's jalapeno chip, and we were talking about all the work going on in tech last week. And so he just said, a neutron walks into a bar and orders a martini. When the bartender hands him the drink, the neutron asks, how much do I owe you? And the bartender replies, for you, no charge. So that's a new take on a fairly old joke. I really enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of dad jokes, so Dennis, keep them coming. We always enjoy those. That will cover this episode. We couldn't do this podcast without listeners like you, like Dennis. We want to hear what you think. Do you think that maybe we got this thing wrong on what's going on in India or any of the other AI topics that we discussed today? Let us know. Send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com. Hit us up on X @itsparkcast. If you're watching on YouTube like Dennis, you can leave a comment down below. We do read every comment, every bit of feedback. We respond to most. And if it's particularly interesting, insightful, or humorous, we will read it out on the broadcast. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That way you'll never miss an episode. We'll be back next week with more news and opinions from the world of enterprise IT. Take care.
Thanks for spending some time with us. We hope to see you next week.